Hey, let's speak about. So this is Vibes of Cosmos, book number 5, page 47 onwards, back in time. Let's see about climate change. So as we see in detail, the magnetic north, stick with me, the magnetic north, which today is in Hyperborea, as you can see, Hyperborea, magnetic north. The magnetic north moves every 2,100 years or so, approximately 2,100 years, causing the Earth's climate to change periodically. And of course, it doesn't change all of a sudden. It's a periodic through time. As this movement follows a circle, the so-called Great Circle, we see going back in time where was before the indicated years per image. So as you can see here, this is our present, and this timeline is the same 2,000 years from year zero. So in the last 2,000 years until the present day, this is the Great Circle. As you can see, this is the world where we live. This is Hyperborea, North Pole, Africa, Atlantis, Europe, Asia, North America, South America, Australia, and Lemuria is here. So this is how the Earth has been looking, and this is what the moon shows in the past 2,000 years. As you can see here, this is the Earth from 2,000 years before until now. Now, you see, this is like the grid. So we go from now all the way to the past. We're going to go 4,000 years in the past, 8,000 years, 12,000 years, 16,000 years, 20,000, 24,000, and 28,000 years in the past. Now, that's how the cycles are calculated in the zodiac, and you'll understand. So, this magnetic pole, North Pole, moves towards up, right? It moves towards up. So, look at my mouse. It moves like this. This is in the future. So this is how in the future is going to move. But now we're going to go in the past. So in the past, we have to move down, okay, in the south. So we go from 2,000 years in the past to 4,200 years in the past, and it moves from Hyperborea to here. So between year 0, because we go 2,000 years in the past, and year 4,200 before Christ, as we say, this was the aspect of the world. So the North Pole was around here at the Nile, which is with Egypt and, Israel is right now today, and the south of Europe and north of Africa. This was the magnetic pole, and you can see here that half of South America was frozen, what is today Argentina and Chile, and Lemuria in the south was starting to freeze, and Australia was not frozen, but the freezing bit came towards Australia, and the rest is pretty much like this. Atlantis is still unfrozen. Now, this is like 4,000 years in the past, right? Let's move towards the 8,000 years. So again, this goes down. As you can see, the magnetic north has moved from here, from the region of Egypt and stuff. It moves towards the central part of Africa, which is what we call, between the Sahara Desert and pretty much the central part of Africa. This is where the magnetic north was from 6,400 BC to 4,200 BC. I say BC so you can put yourself in time. So and this was like another 2,100 years. As you can see, it's always like approximately 2,100 years, 2,100, 2,200. So here you can see the Ice Age was terrible for South America. South America and Central America is completely frozen in the Ice Age. Lemuria is completely frozen, and Australia is more than half frozen. Yet Europe and Hyperborea and North America and all of Asia is awesomely life. Pangia, which is the forbidden continent, all these continents are like super awesome, and it's life there. Atlantis is always life. And Africa would be like the same as we have today with the North Pole. So Africa is still okay to live, besides with the exception of where the magnetic north is. Now let's move back. Let's go 8,000 years in the past. Oh, this is like on the page 47, so page 48. Page 48, that's why I like the word Ice Age. This is how the Ice Age happens. So this fact explains the Ice Ages on the continents known to us. From what we see, 11,000 years ago, almost all the land known to us today was in the glacial period, which is, I'm going to show you, which is this, okay? So the known world, besides Africa, half of Africa. But let's move on. So we now go from year 6,400 BC to 8,600 BC. As you can see, in this case, the period would be 2,200 years, right? So that's what I'm saying. It's an approximate 2,000 years, but it can have that 100 or 200 variation. So going back all the way to this period, half of the known world to us is frozen. As you can see, North America and South America are completely frozen. Hyperborea is okay. Australia is not okay in Lemuria, and half of Asia is completely frozen. But because the magnetic north is somewhere around here in the ocean. All of Africa is super awesome to live, and as well as Europe and Hyperborea. And of course, Atlantis is always super awesome to live. And Pangia all of a sudden is like super amazingly, half is super nice. And then we move again in the past. We go from 8,600 BC to 10,800 BC. So now we are in the period way in the past where pretty much all the known world, you can say, well, let's say half of the known world, because Africa is starting from the east. Africa is still livable. The west of Europe is still livable. That's why we speak about, the ancient Europe and stuff. But all of the other, Hyperborea in this case is again the same as the magnetic north. So the magnetic north right now is in Pangia, and Hyperborea is once again frozen because the great circle ends here. This is where the sun moves. That's why it's called the great circle, because the sun allows for life, and the edge of the sun reaches west of Europe. So now it's like deadly frozen here. And of course, the other continents in here are starting to freeze. Atlantis, as always, is always within the great circle. So life in Atlantis is always possible. That's why I guess the Atlanteans are always there. Lemuria is not like that, unless we would have another sun like Mercury, which would be close here. And so this is like seeing it from the point of view of the sun that we know about in the world we live in. And now we go to the last one. We go to the super supreme, back all the way to year 13,000 BC, right? To 10,800 to 13,000. This is what was the Ice Age back in the day, when all the known world to us, with the exception of half of Africa, was frozen. So the half of Africa, Europe, Asia, Hyperborea, North America, South America, Australia, Lemuria, everything was frozen. And as you can see here, Atlantis is still okay. And this was the glorious age of Pangia. The magnetic north goes to here and creates the great circle. The edges of the great circle reach Africa. That's why they say, oh, back in the ancient days, right, in the very far distant days, when the Ice Age was in this world, Africa, Western Africa had life, right? Of course, Atlantis always has life, and Pangia had life as well. So now let's read this here. As you can see here, this is what I'm telling you. So this is like what we know as the Ice Age of the known world. Everything is frozen, and this is the awesomeness of the ancient past, 13,000 years ago, when Atlantis and Western Africa. So I guess the Atlanteans would go to Western Africa if they wanted to, and Pangia. Now, because of the motion of the magnetic north near Atlantis, there were earthquakes and floods there. You see what I mean? So this is when we say, oh, Atlantis got destroyed. So the motion of the magnetic north, as you can see here, back 13,000 years ago, the magnetic north, which came all the way, so in the present day is here, but back in the day it was here. So the magnetic north was very close to Atlantis. Now, that movement that was like this, so check out my mouse, from here all the way like this movement affects Atlantis, because this movement was like here, and it was in the region of Atlantis. So there were earthquakes and floods there, submerging a part of it. You see? So we don't know if like these lighter yellow things are probably the submerged continent. So Atlantis will be all of this, but like the light blue is submerged underwater. So all the other continents were in ice and snow, freezed in Ice Age. As you can see, everything white is Ice Age because of the position of the magnetic north, and the great circle was here. As we calculate this era in the last era of Ice Ages for the known continents, Ice Ages duration for the known world was 7,000 to 13,000 years, depending on the region, except some areas. So we speak about the Ice Age of the known world: Africa, Europe, Asia, Americas, Australia, etc. So this is like Terra Vista. Back the Arctic then would be in Terra Vista, which is like so this is how you understand how the climate works. Terra Vista, which is Pangia, was the only habitable continent before 10,800 BC to 13,000 BC. So there were all the types of climates in this super huge continent, Terra Vista, during this epoch, just like we have in our known world. Where the magnetic north was the Arctic. Then we have the subarctic, then you have the temperate, the subtropical, tropical, subtropical, and temperate again, which is the region close to what we call Antarctica, right? And this was Pangia. So you see Pangia here, the temperate, the green and yellow stuff is pretty much the same as we have today in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, in North America, South America, Australia, etc. Because that's where the magnetic north was. So yeah, this is to show you one huge continent with all the climate types here. Vibes of the Cosmos has taken out all the other continents so you can understand what Pangia means, how big. The only one habitable continent on the Earth then, back in the days when the known world, our known world where we live today, was all frozen in the Ice Age. So now you understand, I hope you now understand what we learned in history. Unfortunately, they didn't explain it to us like this in history, to consider that, you know, the moon is the inverted mirror of the Earth and shows the continents and everything else. So I hope this makes sense, and see you in the next video.